Oh my, this is the spotlight. Kia ora koutou whānau, ko Earaki te moka, ko Waitaki te awa, ko Ngāti Airahi te iwi, ko Kate Kearney taku ingoa. Is there any way the lights can be just a little bit less bright? I know. I'm sure everyone here looks great. Now, this is going to be an awesome session, everyone. I actually was adding up the years, so Paul, it was amazing that you decided to find out how long people have been in the housing sector. When we had a coffee preparing for this session, it turns out that our amazing wahine sitting on the chairs over here have collectively 76 years of housing experience. It was awesome. And so I was going to make it the awesome wahine session, but then I went, well, we've got Paul. Does he fit in? Does he not? But then I went, he's such a thoroughly good bloke. We might call him a Southern man for the next few days. And as long as you don't drink too much beer, we'd be really happy to give you that name permanently. So, Paul, we thought you were 8 years. Would that be about right in housing? 10. So 86 years of experience in housing sitting here for this panel today. We really want to welcome you not only to Otatahi, but to this session. It's a privilege to be here. What we're going to focus in on is CHPs, diversity and change. Our panellists will traverse their mahi and their place, as well as place and grassroots examples of work that is working to house our people. Collectively, we're going to look at what is diversity in the housing system, and also to look at are there opportunities for Chipa Māori to collaboratively enhance housing in Aotearoa. I just want to really welcome Julie, actually, because now we're not going to introduce all the speakers, but Julie thought she was coming to this conference and wasn't going to be speaking at all. And she made the mistake of saying to me, I'm here for the first time ever, and I'm just going to sit back and listen. And I went, oh, but Julie, no, you must talk. So you'll hear about the examples from Julie of bringing a product into the market that wasn't in existence before. It's an awesome lineup. So we're going to start with Victoria. Victoria is the CEO of Manawa Community Housing Trust in Tauranga. Thanks.
Kia ora tātou katoa ngā mihi nui kia koutou. Te mea te tahi me mihi atu ki ngā tangata whenua o tēnei rohe. Ngai tu ahuriri, tēnā koutou katoa, o ku whanaunga kei te taha o tōku pāpā no tu ahuriri a hau. No Ngāti Kuri, no Kaikoura, me Moiraki a hau. So, no reira tēnā koutou katoa. Kei te taha o tōku māma no Tauranga Moana. Ko mangatawa te maunga, ko rangatawa te awa, ko tamapahori te tangata, ko ngā pōtiki te iwi, ko au, ko Wikitoria, Victoria Carroll, tēnā koutou katoa. Well, this is nice, more relaxed down here. Hi, ladies. It's really good to be here. It's been a while and it's really great to see familiar faces, and I call us the old battlers. I colour my hair now. I am an old battler, but I colour the hair. So it's really fantastic. I also love the diversity in the room. Love it. I remember the last conference that I attended, it was awash with white. So not that that's a negative thing, but we need to transform, and to do that we need to work together. And there's lots of opportunity, the more diversity in the room. I'm going to encourage all CHPs to start talking to all iwi and all Māori and Pacifica in the room. So that's my kaupapa this next few days. I also encourage us to work together as CHPs. I've got examples where we haven't worked well together, and it's not great. We miss out on great opportunities when we don't work together. And I look to the Tauranga Moana wholesale stock of 1,500 Housing Corp homes transferred to a CHP that didn't come from Tauranga. Sorry, accessible, just had to say it. But we have 5 CHPs in Tauranga, and had we got our act together, that wouldn't have happened. So, you know, let's be strategic. I'm just to start like that. I'm just going to tell you our story in Ngā Pōtiki. So Ngā Pōtiki is a treaty settlement tribe. We're a small tribe in Tauranga Moana. We really had to claw and and scrape out a settlement for ourselves from our main iwi. It caused a lot of problems. The treaty settlement process is not a nice process. But we knew in 1999, it's been a 23, 24-year process. We still haven't settled, by the way. Tama, I hope you get stuck in there in the politics and get things moving for settlements, because CHPs working with treaty settlement tribes makes a lot of sense. A lot of Māori want to be doing we want to get into housing, not necessarily have to carry all of the administrative burden. It's time for partnerships. We didn't have that opportunity when we started out, but we knew that housing was key. Housing was going to be a key post-treaty settlement strategy for Ngā Pōtiki, and we knew that in 2000, that's 23 years ago. We know that if we've got good, stable housing for our whānau, we can work with our whānau. They're not moving all around the country. We can start affecting other post-treaty settlement strategies, and in our experience, it is starting to work. So what did we do? Well, we signed a deed of settlement in 2013. In Tauranga Moana, that settlement still hasn't been legislated and assented to, so we still remain unsettled. And our settlement was very small, $3.2 million. Also in treaty settlements, you might not know this, but the quantum that the Crown agrees with you, and in our case it was $3.2 million, you have to use that money to buy your stuff back. You buy it back. And in our case, that meant buying our stuff back was $3 million worth. That left us $200,000. And we knew we weren't going to be sustainable. We wouldn't be around in 12 months. So we quickly went into another negotiation with the Crown, and to their credit, they agreed to release 50 acres of land bank land that we had that still would be tied up today if we hadn't have got it in 2013, still be tied up there and wouldn't have realised the 240 residential homes that we were able to develop. Had Crown given us the opportunity back then, we'd be doing so much more now. But anyway, we turned that 200,000, went to the bank with that land in 200,000, and now it's a residential subdivision in Papamoa. Of 240 residential homes, our policy is to set aside at minimum 30% of any of our developments for tribal housing, so that's what we do. In that subdivision, we have 110 sites. We are almost socially engineering our own repatriation for our people back into our area, because our 12,000 acres of land was confiscated in the early 1860s after the land wars. And so this is a post-treaty settlement strategy. It's interesting. I think the difference between us and a CHP, there's lots of differences. There's lots of different drivers. But housing has become the fulcrum point around which we can then branch off and distribute all of these other amazing post-treaty settlement strategies around education, employment, training, better health outcomes, all the things we already know. And then so we've taken that experience. By accident, we've become a developer. Well, not accident, by necessity, we've become a developer. And as part of that, we've turned that crisis moment of 200,000 and on the back foot into transformation. And today we can proudly say our equity is through the roof and we've got really good cash at bank. Not only that, our people are benefiting from the flow-on effects of that. We have houses being built and whānau being put in them, and being, whānau in the community. That development is called the Manawa development. You can have a look at it. So it's a whole community. We have a punareo planned. There's a commercial centre. It will be the first within that, the first iwi-owned and franchised supermarket. I'm going to go for all the firsts we can get, which is amazing. We're just a small little tribe, but perseverance and hard work gets you there. I think the main point is it's not just houses. We're building communities. We have relationships with our schools. We make sure that we have people on those boards. We have cultural exchanges with our teachers. We teach them about our tikanga and our stories. Our developments have wayfinding, have cultural markers. It's relevant to us. It reflects us. Our ethos around kaitiakitanga is expressed in larger and more reserves through our developments, not scrimping and squeezing the lemon till there's nowhere left for anyone to be. You know, the developers are a particular breed, and we're not that breed. So we have our other obligations that we have to, there are other drivers, and they're cultural and they're political, and whanaunga. So Ngā Pōtiki is on that pathway, and I lead the Manawa Community Housing Trust, and we're both a developer and we look after our whānau. I think a point of difference for us there too, I just want to make the point that the reason why CHPs should earnestly start working with Pacifica and Māori is because we do have access to land, and also access to assistance in finance and better working together to save reinventing wheels. I also want to mention that we offer, I think, a point of difference for MCHT, and it's just pointing out the way we do it. It's not to say we're doing it better or anything. I very much do not believe we're doing it any. I think I would say we are being innovative, and we do like to collaborate, and it's really important because then you can get good ideas from mates like Julie, who's been running her successful long-term lease program for some time down in Queenstown. And I'm pleased to say that we've been able to make an offering through MCHT across this continuum or the spectrum. It was really important for me personally, as someone who's been involved in my tribal politics for the last 23 years, to see actual benefits coming down from this bloody settlement to people, and our people progressing along it. Not, here's a benefit, now stay there. Here's a benefit, use it, and now progress. And we're really seeing it. It actually works. So we provide a spectrum of, or a range of housing options, from social housing, affordable housing. We launched a shared equity scheme in 2018 without government assistance, and then another in 2019 that became unaffordable. We had to pivot, and yesterday we got the sign-off on our long-term lease program. What that means is we have whānau, we can cater to their various needs. Not everyone wants the burden of owning a home. Not everyone wants a mortgage. You know, my 21-year-old is really appreciative of the affordable rental that he can live in now and pays 50% market rent. What's most important is that we have things to offer our people that suit them rather than try and push them into offerings that suit us. And we see that progression at work. So whānau and social housing, when they saw our whānau moving into affordable housing, they asked the question, how do I get one of those? And that opens up the doorway for us to have the conversation and work with them. And then the same with our affordable whānau. We rolled out our long-term lease program 4 weeks ago, and a third of those whānau are from our affordable homes. So they've been saving for their deposits and saving with the money they can save, and we see them coming through, and that's just a real pleasure. So those are some of the highlights and the differences that we bring with us in our mahi. But if there's one thing I can leave you with, is just to reiterate, working together, CHPs working with iwi, Māori, Hapu, Pacifica. This is a great diverse crowd. That's it from us. Kia ora.
Is this not working? Okay, there we go.
You're really good on the tech stuff. That was great. Hey, I'm just realising I'm going to be the timekeeper. That was so awesome. Thanks, Victoria. It was really, it's so important to hear you saying those things. So passing over to Alison now, and I'll just give you a wee nudge if we run over.
I've got a fancy PowerPoint, so I better use it properly. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Warm greetings to you all. It's lovely to be back with the community housing whānau after so long. I must say this is probably my biggest gig ever, so it's a little bit nerve-wracking. But it's so amazing to see so many people here, and it's so great to be in Christchurch, a city that's very important to me in my life, being a mainlander originally. So thank you to Paul for the invitation to speak. Very quickly, I'll just tell you a little bit about Dwell for those that you don't know us and know where I'm coming from. And I just really want to focus on our role as a builder of new homes and my thoughts on the role that our organisation can play and other similar organisations to us, and how I think that we could do more. And just a little disclaimer that anything I say today is my personal thoughts, not necessarily those of my organisation. And so, which way do I do that? Oh, next. So it's really great timing actually that I'm here today, because yesterday we formally opened 19 new homes in Kilburnie and Wellington, and isn't that a thing of beauty? And we had, thank you. We actually had our blessing of these homes last Wednesday, the day after the Loafers Lodge fire. So it was a very emotional time for us, the real highs and real lows of what it's like working in our sector. But we are very proud and we wish we could do more. So this is, I won't go into this is the type of housing services that we provide. We do social housing, whatever you want to call it, below market rental, what we call shared living. So we facilitate individual adults to live together. Mostly they come through the mental health services. We manage a complex for a small iwi whenua trust. It's something we're very proud of, and we have done shared home ownership in the past. And the thing I love to say is that we are for-purpose home builders. In our own small way, we want to add to the supply of housing in our city. We are a small organisation. When we have all the people living in our new homes, we'll be housing about 260 people. We manage about 18 tenancies. So I like to say we're small but perfectly formed. Our organisation started over 40 years ago, and when we celebrated our 40th anniversary, somebody wrote a history for us, and he called it Tenants, Tenacity, Troubles and Triumphs, and I think it just so well sums up our organisation and also our sector. And I just want to make the point too that no matter what the political ideology was, no matter what the funding that was available or not available, and no matter what the environment is, in our 40-year history, Dwell, and I know other CHPs, have just got on and done what we could. We know the need, we've got the vision, and we know that we can do what we do and we want to do more. One thing that really stood out when we had the 40th was the constant change in the government funding and government and general environment. And I just wanted to show you some photos of other homes that we have built. And each one of these developments has been with a different government agency and through a different funding scheme. And for an organisation like that, ours, that's an enormous resource. It takes enormous time and energy, and it's incredibly inefficient. So my thoughts on the role of our organisation and our added value. So, I mean, I could stand here all day, believe me, and talk about this. There was 3 overarching things that I wanted to mention. The first one, I think, is our flexibility and our responsiveness. Our ability to work with many people and partners, and our ability to use different funding sources and work with different funders. Next is community, our connection with our community, the knowledge of our community, the connection with so many different aspects of people in the community that we work in. I should actually say we're based in the Greater Wellington region. And then I guess our greatest added value is our connection that we have with our tenants. I thought it would just to highlight some of those things. Oh, there's our new development again, isn't it beautiful? I thought just to highlight some of those things, I would tell you just a bit more detail, a couple of our recent developments. So this one in Kilburnie, we had built homes across the road, and so we had established the relationships with businesses and others in that area. The first site that we built is where you can see there's like a shop that's actually now going to be the Dwell office. that builders that we'd worked with, they purchased that site with us in mind, and we were able to work with them to actually build on it, of course. And then there's a site adjoining it that was owned by Foodstuffs, because there's a supermarket next door, and because of that relationship, Foodstuffs offered us that site as well. And so we were able to use a mix of us selling older properties that were no longer fit for purpose and donations from private trusts and individuals, and of course government support to build this complex of 19 new homes and 1 commercial space. So our organisation pulled off a roughly $14 million project on budget and on time with the backdrop of COVID. We started building just after one of the first lockdowns. There was all the supply construction issues that we had, but we worked through it because we had the right team and we have the expertise and knowledge to pick that right team. So, you know, it's a real example of the capacity that does exist within the community housing sector. And we actually have built up a really fantastic team, and we need to keep the momentum and we need to keep them employed, and they want to keep working for us. It was so touching at our opening yesterday. Our builder gave a speech and he was almost in tears. So this is, yesterday was a huge day for us. That's why I've got bags under my eyes, but we settled on the purchase of this property in the Hutt Valley. So this is a really, really lovely story. It's a property that was owned by a woman. It was bequeathed to her by her parents, a Pacifica family that moved to Lower Hutt in the 50s. They worked in the local biscuit factory and in the cigarette factory, and they saved up. They've got this home and they wanted to pass on their hard work and make sure more people benefit from it. The daughter and her partner went to Kāinga Ora to try and do a deal with them, and after 8 months of no decision and no action, they almost gave it away when they heard about Dwell. And luckily we had a supporter at the time who would agree to purchase this property for us, and so in the matter of about 5 weeks we'd agreed to sign a deal, we'd agreed a purchase with them. This is just a couple of the opportunities that come our way. There's more and more all the time. Do I need to finish? So I'll quickly, sorry. This is a future project that we're working on. We want to do mixed tenure and do different models. And there's huge challenges about that, but I know some of the others on the panel are going to talk about that. And I'll just say that we own part of this property now, and Wellington City Mission own the others, and we've done a deal with them. This is just the way we work with our tenants. It's the 3-legged stool that's very, very important to us. And I think, you know, the way we work with our tenants, we lean into the complexities of their life, and that's a key part of what we want to do. And actually the really most important thing that I really wanted to talk about was Kate said to me when we were talking about our presentation is how can we put that on steroids? And it did make me think, what kind of drug do we need? And these are I always fancied myself as a doctor, but these are the things that I think we need. I mean, funding goes without saying, and you know that we're going to talk about that. I think we need an enabling government environment. I mean, I just cannot believe that we are still talking about the role of the community housing sector, the ebb and flow over the years of what our role should be. I mean, we're doing it, we need to be doing more of it. And I just want to say that I remember 20 years ago, 2005, Steve Mahari launching the housing strategy and saying government can't do this on its own. And somehow that message has gone up and down over the time. But if we had been able to just even do 20 homes over those 20 years, we would have 400 homes, and that would have actually grown even more. And Kate's going to tell me to stop. And I think we need to do all those things, but I'll tell you about them later. And can I just say our new development is called Mohora Te Araha, and it's spreading the love. And I think that's a very appropriate message. It's something that we all want to do. And yeah, that's me. And let's fly kites.
Kia ora koutou katoa, ngā mihi nui ki a koutou. I came to this conference thinking I'm actually going to sit out there and enjoy the rest and just take 3 days out in Christchurch and relax. I shouldn't have registered so early, and I wouldn't be here speaking today. Ko rangi ruramahanga te awa, ko kahununu ki Wairapa te iwi, ko te ore te marae, ko haiata whānau, ta whaiti whānau, tupuna, ko Iwa Wilson ahau. Sorry, that caught me off guard. I should have started with my pepeha first. My mahi is at Te Runanga o Kirikiriroa. Prior to that mahi, I was with Rau Awa Awa Kaumātua Charitable Trust since its inception, and today I want to pay tribute to our kaupapa partners, our colleagues, our friends from Rau Awa Awa who take care of our kaumātua in Kirikiriroa. My presentation today is somewhere up there, or not. It's got Te Runanga o Kirikiriroa on the PowerPoint.
So apparently, this is the key.
Look at the TV. Even when you get to 65, you can still do this. Just thought I'd let you know.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, that wasn't the solution. I think they're busily just fixing it up there.
It's okay.
It'll come to us at any minute, I'm sure.
It's okay. It's certainly my privilege to be here today to talk around some of the work that we're doing in Waikato, in Kirikiriroa particularly. Te Runanga o Kirikiriroa is a mātā waka organisation. Whānau first, wellbeing focused, tikanga based. Our mahi is not just housing, our mahi is right across the lifespan from our babies to our kaumātua. Now, which one? Green? Yes, great. Never too old to learn. I've been really fortunate to have worked in this space for over 20 years. When homelessness or houselessness was around in social welfare days, and when Rau Awa Awa was established, the social welfare department at that time, and I know they're called MSD nowadays, came and said, can you take some people that we've got nowhere to put. The Rau Awa was never set up to do that, but to be able to house our whānau, and so we're talking some 18, 19 years ago. Since then, the Runanga has been able to work in the space of encouraging dreams and aspirations. Yesterday I spoke to the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development about how do we find solutions to decrease emergency housing. We talk about building home ownership, we talk about progressive home ownership, and we know about emergency housing, we know about transitional housingness, and we know about houselessness. So we know this stuff, and they were looking for solutions in the Waikato to decreasing the number of motels our whānau are in Waikato. The first thing I suggested was you need to talk to our people who live in those motels day in and day out. They have ideas, they have feelings, they have thoughts. Have we asked them what the next step is? So I just thought that I'd share that with you. And I think that's what's often missing in our space, is the voice of those that experience it day in and day out, of our young parents coming through wanting to get onto the home ownership ladder and not knowing where to start, or not even believing it's a dream or an aspiration because they see what's around them. I'm a mother of 10 children. This is where you go. I have 36 mokopuna and 2 moko. And my kids will tell you all that actually they were dragged here, there and everywhere, but they all work in community services, so it can't have been too bad, too traumatising for them growing up. And that's what drives me to get out of bed every day, to do this mahi. That's the driver. If we can make a difference, if we can support dreams and aspirations. Inclusiveness, not exclusiveness. Partnering with like-minded people. Today, Habitat for Humanity are here, one of our Waikato partners who has supported us to get on the progressive home ownership journey. Our awa partners, we talk with one another, we work with one another. Can we get better across Waikato? Absolutely. This is what we do at Te Renanga o Kirikiriroa. We have multiple siloed, we all know this word, contracts in our organisation that covers the lifespan. We've got a team that works across 22 motels in the navigation team. We have 97 transitional homes. Public housing, I hate that word. Where did it come from? This is housing. This is whānau first. This is our families we talk about, and then we use the word public. It used to be social housing, and names have changed over time. So I think we also need to think about how we're labelling things. He Wahi Kāinga pilot is a 4-year pilot where our whānau coming out of mental health can settle in the community. So currently we've got 7 whare that our whānau reside in until we can get them into long-term secure housing. And some amazing mahi happening there. We have 7 rangatahi whare and looking to expand that very soon for 16-year-olds, anyone in the room? For 16 to 24-year-olds. So this is single, young parents, and we're working in that space as well. We've got a development, progressive home ownership plan, another new kaumātua village build, and the Building Better Homes, Towns and Cities research has enabled us to create the story, turn that research into action and be able to share those learnings. This is our new kaumātua. Any ministry people in the room? No. Just in case the proposal is sitting on your desk somewhere. So this is 24 new whare with a community hub. Designated kaumātua, we already have 2 kaumātua villages, and the kaumātua that have moved in to our villages 12 years ago are still there. The majority are still there today. So we know for our kaumātua, they don't necessarily want home ownership or need home ownership, and they're happy to live the way they prefer to live. So there are you'll see there's no car parks or garages on site. This is being done so our whānau, our kaumātua can walk and talk with one another as they make their ways to their vehicles. It has been Homestar 6. So with our developers, we said this is our standard now. You come up to our standard or we don't partner with you. So that's just an example of one of the new projects. Do I get any compensation for this not working? Te Pua Waitanga. This is a mixed tenure, mixed typology, community hub where we can bring the nannies, the whānau, get back to some of our basics like the bottling, the knitting, the sewing with our young mamas, pepes, and have that ability to have nanny live next door to our whānau or in the same whare. The Runanga owns this piece of whenua. The challenges have been around all the multiple applications for different typologies, different tenures, mixed public housing, progressive home ownership. So that's the challenge moving forward. And as I was saying, I did bring a few of these toolkits and I'll leave them out the front for anyone that's interested in having a look. So if our kaumātua from Rawaawa can get up, go to Iron Māori, then as community providers, the challenge is on for us to get up every day and to be able to see if we can help change lives and give hope. Kia ora.
Kia ora, everybody. I'm going to give the 2-minute elevator pitch for the Queenstown Lakes Community Housing Trust because I know that we're waiting for lunch. So our trust was established in 2007. We were in the fortuitous position that we have a very close relationship with local council who has facilitated close to $40 million in land and cash equity across to our trust. That's through the inclusionary zoning process or inclusionary housing. For those of you who aren't familiar with that, it's essentially it's a planning tool where it enables councils, or our council in particular, the Queenstown Lakes is doing it, to say, hey, look, here's a piece of rural land. It's valued down here because it's zoned as rural. Then the land developers come to council and they say, we want you to rezone that land and make it residential. And our council says, well, if we do that, we're facilitating huge uplift in value of that land. So we want a little bit of that value uplift captured and brought back to the community for the purposes of housing low to moderate income workers in the district. That's essentially very, very much a paraphrase, the idea behind inclusionary zoning. So that's how we've got the base of our capital. We currently have about 55 million of net assets. And so we started back in 2007 with the shared ownership model. It worked really well. We got our teeth into that, and after a couple of years, and we probably picked the low-hanging fruit, to be honest, the slightly higher, moderate income workers, families with good incomes and a bit of a deposit. And then we started looking at our waiting list further along the housing continuum, saying how are we going to help these people? So we came up with a rent to buy program and then an affordable rental program. And this is what we're talking about, change, and Kay mentioned it before about adaptability. I think being able to adapt is really important for a sustainable organisation to remain sustainable. And then in 2015, the government at the time came along and said, hey, we're going to open up public housing, social housing it was back then, we're going to open it up to registered community housing providers. So we put our hands up and said, yep, we need a bit of that. And this is probably one of the pros and cons of the community housing sector, I think, is that you do end up chasing the funding a bit. And we've all seen that, we've put our hand up and said, yes, we like the IRRS, so we're going to get into that space. Also, to be honest, Kāinga has 13 public housing properties in our district, not 1,300, by the way, just 13. So we currently have 40 public housing tenancies on our books at the moment. So we're in that space. We operate along the housing continuum. Unfortunately, because there hasn't been a lot of funding, central government funding for the that affordable rental market, below market rents, we don't have a huge number of our portfolio in that program just because there hasn't been the same funding to attract it. Hopefully we'll see that starting to change with the new affordable housing fund that's come out. And the same now, we have our rent to buy program and our assisted ownership model, which is no longer shared ownership. We've moved across that into leasehold now, so we retain the land in perpetuity. And that's a really important component of the program and of what the story is and how we're getting the funding from the community, from landowners, developers, and we're making a commitment that we're going to retain it in perpetuity for the community. So that's why we made that transition from shared ownership to secure home. So that's my 2-minute pitch. Hopefully kept to it, and yeah.
Amazing. So, Paul, before you get to talk, how far can we run over?
It's just a couple of minutes, I think, because we don't want
Next
to
one.
bookend at the end.
So then, Can I ask you to give us the pitch on why is finance so important
Yeah.
to put the chip sector on steroids?
Yeah, I think Greg Orchard wouldn't forgive me if we didn't talk about money, because he's one of our most financially literate chief executives and has a treasury function operating out the back end of Accessible. So I think just 4 things to think about as you go off to lunch. Let's start with the budget last week, which did allocate 3,000 new public housing places. There's a lot of opportunity for you all to polish off those proposals. Some of them I know were put on hold because of the lack of certainty long term in terms of funding. So I encourage you to polish those off, get those ready and get those into MHUD procurement teams as quickly as possible now that the lid has been lifted. I think there's a theme that's been running through here, which is a great frustration to all of you, which is the lack of consistent and predictable policy settings and funding. That's a big thing that we all need to send clear messages to. Kia ora tama. I'm sure Chris is going to be around later today. It's the same message I've been giving to all of the political parties who have been engaging with us and asking what do we need to see in the system. It's sustainable, long-term, predictable funding for these programs. And that includes progressive home ownership, which is sort of number 2 on the item to think about over the lunch. Those products, and there's quite a wide range of them. So you've heard about one here. There's another one with Habitat. There's another one with the New Zealand Housing Foundation. Kāinga Orders designed its own one, which is of questionable validity, really. Why do we need all of these different products? It gets confusing for the market, right? So it's a shame that happened. But those products are not working at all for our Māori providers. So there's a huge piece of work needs to be done on making the progressive home ownership tools, which we've only just put back in our toolkit. They are very precarious. They're not a permanent part of the housing system. It's a single expiring line item of reallocated funding from the Kiwi Build program, which expires, when was it, Julie, you said? June next year. So that's a very precarious situation for a product which we believe for some households, having that choice adds value to them and their lives if that's in the housing toolkit that we're carrying around with us. So the third thing to think about is the Affordable Housing Fund, which has been hugely oversubscribed. When I spoke with Megan Woods in her office not too long ago, she asked us to consider getting back into the provision of affordable rentals, defined as rent less than 80% of current market in any given context. I said, yeah, great, but the numbers don't stack up. So what are we doing about extending and continuing our commitment to the Affordable Housing Fund? If you want those outcomes and you want subsidised housing, you've got to put the money in the tin. So those are some of the big things I think that we really need to be thinking about as we step forward in this conference, because sustainable finance and funding are critical elements, and you've heard it throughout. If we can't raise the finance, the housing outcomes are extraordinarily difficult to deliver. And if we look at the recent history of the community housing sector, the big successful CHPs that are really starting to get up to scale and efficiency are the ones that have had direct grants and HIF funding and SHU funding. Those are the ones that have grown. Those are the ones that are into sustainability. That's really key that's a key aspect of your drugs and your steroids. We'll leave it there.
Oh, brilliant.